Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of The Flash. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, picking up where the previous episode left off, we have the Eobard we've come to know and extremely hate is now back. And but for Barry's like, it doesn't make any sense. You were dead. It's like, yeah, but I told you I will always find a way. My hate for you runs so deep, Barry. I will always find a way to like come out on top. And so it's like, cool. And even throwing out the parallels, it's like, right, I murdered your mother and it birthed the Flash. You murdered your wife and you rebirthed me. It's like they're constantly stuck in this cycle of hate and just like they feed off each other. I mean, Barry hates him as much as he hates Barry. And it's like, it's fascinating. That moment, Barry goes full blown Sith in that moment. It's almost like very Palpatine-like, and he just like lays into him. But if it wasn't for Nora and Bart stopping him, he would have gone too far. It's like, if you do this, you can't go that far. You'll just be just like him. Obviously, if we're here, that must mean there's still a way to save Mom because we didn't disappear. But the thing is, as we know, time takes a little while to solidify. So as long as they're still here, though, that means there's still hope. And Eobard's like, it still can't finish me off, Barry. You should, because if you don't, you know I'm going to come after your kids next, you know? And so Eobard disappears. It's not like he took off. He disappeared into particles, and we later on find out the negative forces took him away. Which, well, since we're on that conversation, he's trying to it is kind of messed up where they took him. Well, I was thinking, like, wait, can they just take you to a timeline that no longer exists? I guess it's like, right, we took you to a void and we made it look like, because the void's like just like the place that the forces kick it at is where they manifested that, because that, you know, just like the Speed Force can look whatever she wants to. So she ended up choosing like Barry's mom as kind of like her final form more often than not, but she could be whatever. She could make areas inside the Speed Force look like whatever. So this is inside the negative Speed Force, making it look, because I was about to say, I was like, it's interesting that they would pick. I guess the reason why they picked that particular timeline during Armageddon, it's the one where he won. He kind of came out on top. It's the most quote unquote, I mean, obviously it got undone and it no longer exists, but at one point in time, that was the clearest victory he had against Barry. It's kind of a little sickening and weird just to be like, oh, here's all these photos of him and Iris. It's just like, oh, that's weird and unnatural. But the fact is that they brought him back, not just to be himself, like they needed him. Because they explain everything, that the fact is the negative Speed Force, it's like, you think you chose the negative Speed Force? No, don't get it twisted, Eobard. The negative Speed Force chose you. Your hatred for Barry Allen was so palpable, so intoxicating. Like, the Speed Force fed off of that. And it's like, yeah, the Speed Force needed you around because you've been its fuel for so long. It's like, it fed off of you. It's like you were the perfect person to feed off of that hate from. And the moment Barry severed their connection, it didn't have anything to feed off of because the other Eobard wasn't filled with hate. So it's like, no, he's got to go, because as long as he's still in existence, it needed one Eobard to go to, and it couldn't go to him, and this Eobard's connection was severed. So I guess that Eobard had to be like, I guess what I'm thinking is, and my explanation for it is, they took the essence and everything that was the Eobard that we've known as the Reverse Flash and put it in the good Eobard, like completely destroying his existence to rebirth this new Eobard. That's my best explanation of that. They didn't really go into like explaining. They gave it their explanation, just kind of like, this is kind of what happened. I'm trying to fully understand it. I'm sure there's someone else out there who could break it down a lot better than I did. But lo and behold, Eobard is now back to just being a pawn, because everything was set in motion by Barry. Because the moment Barry severed his connection, they actually, well, later on explain it to Barry when he manages to get out of the negative Speed Force, which will kind of backtrack and explain that a little bit. But they explain that basically he broke the rules of reality. He threw the universe off balance because there has to be the negative speed force. Like, it's kind of like the yin and not kind of, it is the yin and the yang of the universe. There has to be balance. By severing the connection, by getting rid of the negative speed force avatar, he threw everything off balance. And then the negative speed force summoned up the other avatars and was like, yo, release, do my bidding, do my will, because I need my avatar back. It's like, right, Barry basically swung the pendulum so far in one direction, knocking everything off balance by removing Eobar's speed and connection to the speed force. Now the negative speed force is trying to swing back even more. So it's trying to like go even further on its side of the pendulum to make this happen. So, and ultimately it ended with Eobard having the power of all the speed forces. So Barry was trying to find a way into the negative speed force because he was just so angry. Obviously, him and Mina were so heartbroken because the people they love most are gone now. And just nothing anyone could say. No one on Team Flash, not Cecile, not Bart, not Nora. No one could talk Barry down because, like, I mean, it's one thing when it's like, there's also the extra layer of like, not only is Eobard back and he's back because of the death of your wife and he's rubbing it in your face, you were used as the weapon to kill her, so that's also like the middle finger to the whole thing. So Barry wants to go inside the negative speed force, and he's feeling all his feelings, and he's like, screw it, I want to kill Eobard. He has to die. He has to die now. I've given him a chance. Mia and me wanted him dead. Even I think Iris was all about killing him at the end of Armageddon. After everything he did, it's like, we should just kill him. But Jotun was like, no, we find another way. But like Barry's just like, no. After like losing Iris like this, it's like, no, screw that. He has to die. So he tries to go into, he ends up getting help from Mina to like, she transfers, like, so she builds up the negative speed force the speed in herself, and then she passes it on to Barry to give him the energy he needs to like go into the negative speed force, which immediately he gets kicked out. So that need for revenge against Eobard kind of subsides because it's like, right, even now, like, not that Barry feels bad for him, but it's like, right, he's just a tool in all of this as well. He's just a means to an end. So at the same time this is all happening, you have Iris in the time stone talking to Damien Dark. I was like, yeah! It's like, apparently he's like, yeah, or you could be stuck here forever with this version of me. It's just an imprint. Damien Dark is gone, but this is like a little imprint of his consciousness that's stuck inside the time stone. And I guess he's almost at that point where he's in this existence of, I'm basically here to watch the timelines forever. I'm kind of like I guess almost like a watcher to some extent, but the time stone being this like center of all time. And it's like, I'd actually forgot that he gave it to Joe. That had to be like part 4, right? Was he in part 5 or not? I actually don't remember if he was in part 5 or not. I think he was definitely in part 4, because that's when. But either way, but I love Neil McDonough just because anytime he gets to play these villainous roles, he gets to just chew up the scenery. He's like, oh, this dastardly plan. He's like, reminds me of my bad old days. I'm like, yeah. It's probably the last we'll get of Damien Dark just because of it. Because we don't know what happened to the Time Stone in the end, whether it disappeared or not, which it seems like it did, or maybe it served its purpose, so it's lost to out there somewhere again, like, or not less when Iris came back, because it disappeared, but maybe like, oh, she popped out of it but still has it. But I'm thinking it disappeared, but maybe it doesn't have a physical form anymore. Maybe it turned into an ethereal thing, or maybe it does have the physical form, it's just somewhere in time and space, just out there somewhere. I don't know. But he had explained to Iris, it's like, right, this isn't just going to be your end, because your end should have come so many times. You were supposed to die by Savitar. You got stuck inside of a mirror dimension, but you always come out because there's still so much more for you to do. Like, it's like, just because you can't feel your connection to Barry doesn't mean it's not there, because when she couldn't feel it, Barry couldn't feel it either. That's what really sold it for him, that is like, right, Iris died in my arms. He couldn't feel that connection anymore, so that's why he was like, no, she's dead. I'm not gonna be like, people, because for him it's like, no one can understand what I'm feeling, what I saw, what I experienced, because no one else was there to like see that go down with Iris. And so Iris ends up reigniting that spark on her end, and it frees her from the time stone. The way it was glowing when it was in that cabinet or whatever, and I was like, do you have kryptonite in there? Why is that glowing so green? But I'm like, well, yeah, this also deals with the still force and everything, so it kind of makes sense that it would glow green, because that's what kind of eventually led, well, her time sickness manifested itself specifically like that, because it was the negative force Dion that ended up infecting her. Well, what we think, but I mean, it started with her and manifested that way, so I'm like, green makes sense. So, like I said, my mind immediately thought like kryptonite or something, but... I also love that line from Bart, like, oh, who is, he made some reference to Eobard's new suit, being like, oh, who is his designer? Satan? Because it's like, yeah, back in all black and stuff like that, and, just full-blown, just, once again, going full-blown Sith, just like, lightning, red lightning specifically, death, like, dropping bodies left and right like it's nothing. I'm like, wow, he's, and then just like, oh, these, and they even admit later on, they're like, oh, these aren't people who are just injured, these are people who are just straight up murdered. He murked a lot of people. And so our Ford speedsters, Barry, Nora, Bart, and Mina try to take him on, but it's like he literally has all the power. So they try to like hit him with lightning all at once. They end up hitting Bart because he used, Psyche's power to mess with their heads. Then he used the still force to send them all back a billion years. I'm like, well, they're speedsters. They'll eventually get back. I wonder, going that... I mean, I know, but it's like, we never... I mean, it's time travel, so it's the blink of an eye, but to be fair, two of them knows how to time travel. They probably never traveled that far of a distance before. That is billions of years, so it's like, that's a large amount of time to travel. Plus, Mina doesn't know how to time travel either, so they're kind of stuck where they're stuck. They wouldn't be able to get her back, so that's a whole thing. Plus, it's the still force, so that probably adds a whole element of, like, wherever they are, not only they're back a billion years in past, they're probably stuck too, so maybe there's even that element to it. Because Barry can't really do much against it, because once again, it's like, the moment you make a move, the guy just, like, uses the still force to stop you. So, what can you do against that? He was able to kind of break free before because the negative forces weren't as strong, and he has his experience, so he was able to fight back against them. But at the same time, this is all going down. Bashir reached out to Cecile, who she reaches out to Top and Queen to help focus her powers. She reaches Bashir, and he's like, oh, yeah, I'm actually the one, like, he had said that basically when they were, like, in their situation, they ended up finding an avatar to latch on to. I thought he was going to say, like, each one of them did, but it seems like only Bashir's the one who did. And so he latched on to Cecile because of her limitless potential. And Queen and Top are like, wait, so you're the one responsible for making it so she took our powers? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, well, thanks. And he's like, you're welcome? Because he's like, I guess he wasn't reading their sarcasm. But it's like, he's the reason why she's able to, like, she's gotten her boost, why she's been able to steal powers and stuff. But it's all for the purposes of you being able to reach me, which you did. Now I need you to put on my mask, channel all that power to me so that I can get the rest of my siblings, which he ultimately does. They join forces, and basically Barry and Eobard going full-blown God mode. And it's, and I even love when Iris came back, it's like, oh my god, they're doing Armageddon, which you're like, that is interesting how that comes full circle. Like, Barry stopped Armageddon, and Eobard's kind of really the cause of Armageddon. I mean, they were kind of a little bit causing Armageddon too when they were, like, when Barry is racing to, like, undo everything, but when that's all said and done, like, I mean, these are, once again, they're forever trapped in their heated battle of hate. Barry hating Eobard as much. And so Barry's not even, he thinks he's saving people, but he's like, I gotta stop. But he's more focused on anything of killing Eobard. He's got to get revenge for Iris. He's got to stop him for all the people that he's killed. So, but Iris shows up to stop him and is like, you can't keep going on like this. This will never end. And even Eobard says it won't. And so Barry stops fighting him because he knows Eobard will be his own destruction. Because me fighting you, it's just giving you what you want. And it's like, this whole city's going to suffer because of it. So kind of going back to the Steel Force thing of him kind of like tapping into everything and being calm. As much as Eobard attacks him, it doesn't affect him because I guess he's using all the forces to kind of just make everything kind of cancel out around him. Granted, it's sure as hell killing a whole bunch of people. I'm like, you can't just stop this, right? You have to rewind this because buildings are about to get destroyed, but Eobard just keeps tapping into more power because it's like, no, I need to kill Barry. I have the power, but I need more and more, and he keeps drawing in more and more of the negative speed, the other negative forces, but it's too much for him because no human should have that much power. It's too much beyond their control, and Eobard just never knew when to stop. He never knew what was his limit because nothing... I shouldn't have any limits when it comes to killing Barry Allen, and the power of like rubber band back and destroyed him, wiping him out of existence. And not just, this is the end. There is no more Eobard. There's no like, oh, I way around it. It's just like, no, he's finally gone once and for all. So Barry was able to bring Nora, Bart, and Mina back. You know, so I mean, it has... Everything's resolved, but it still has a sad ending to it. You know, it's like, I mean, Iris is cured, and Barry's kind of back to just being Barry, well, just with his normal speed and everything, and there is some balance returned to the universe, because the forces aren't dead, the negative forces aren't dead, the negative speed force isn't, it's just back in its position of just like a neutral zone, keeping that natural balance to some extent, but... Yeah, it sucks for Mina, because Mina's no longer a speedster now, and, but for her, it's like, right, the dream to be a speedster was, that was never her dream, that was Eobard's, but it turns out, it was the negative speed force the entire time. She was like, it was never my idea, was it? It's like, no, it found you, and it needed, an avatar, so it just, like, it said, like, it did everything it could to manipulate you into setting all this emotion. And it's like, you know, it sucks that they couldn't do anything to bring back the other Eobard, but I guess it's like the moment their Eobard came back, her Eobard disappeared forever. There was no undoing that, you know, that, you know, I mean, he's wiped out from existence, so there's no like time traveling or what. He's like, yeah, he's gone. He should have been gone forever, but but every turn he's always fought his destruction and, you know, try to fight him being erased from existence. And lo and behold, turns out that at the end of it all, he ended up being once again his own destruction. You know, his hate, his not knowing his limits is what was his undoing, so. But Mina's always going to be there to support Team Flash if they ever need her. So I wonder, will there ever be a fast track ever again? It's like, well, because I know, obviously, like, it's not a one-for-one, but I know, like, Trajectory, I don't know how big that character is in the comics, but it was like a one-off character in the show, like season 1 or season 2. Like, that character died because she was using, like, artificial speed, and she ended up, like, injecting herself with it and ended up dying in the process. So I don't know if I'm sure maybe Fast Track is a more prominent character in the comics, but it's like, yeah, she was only around a little bit. Doesn't mean we've seen the end of Mina. I don't know. You never know if she could come back as a speedster. Like, I don't know if Barry could share his speed with her, and even if he did, it probably may only be a limited time thing. But also, she kind of has no interest in being a speedster, because that was more so Eobard's dream, and now that he's gone, she's just going to carry on her dream, you know, wanting, you know, she might not have the speed to do it anymore, but she'll carry on the dream of helping people, you know, it's what she would want, it's what Eobard said she could have done with the speed, is what, you know, so, it's just tragic that, like, there is no happily ever after on that front, you know? We do see at the end, Cecile's kind of going back to just her normal powers, and both Queen and Top both have their powers back, and it's like, oh, in actuality, yeah, Cecile's got an upgrade. It seems like she's got telekinesis, so her powers have grown. That, like Bashir said, is like, she has the limitless potential. Like, she could probably naturally unlock a lot of psychic abilities. It's just, she kind of cheated her way there by, like, taking Top and, Queen's powers, but I think given enough time, she'll be able to officially get there herself. So, we'll see. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see what that looks like in the long run. Like, I was scared for a second, because I was like, oh, they're going to make Cecile a villain, but it's like, no, because it was just like, she was getting too powerful all at once. It kind of made me nervous, like, oh, hopefully she doesn't go start power tripping or anything, but it seems like it's all good. But, like I said, we'll see where that goes. Then we had the thing at the very, very end where we catch up to the Mark and Frost thing, which I'm curious if everything going on had anything to do with the machine malfunction, because it looked like some of the glass was broken, but that might have been from when Barry destroyed the place. They probably just never took the time to clean up, or it could have been a combination of two, or maybe it was just everything going on. But the machine malfunction, but it's not Frost, and it's not Caitlin, so maybe now it's somewhere in between. It's like, who are you? And you hear the voice, I'm a friend. Maybe. So I'm like, I guess there maybe is no Frost or Caitlin anymore, that basically both personalities are forever combined as one, maybe. So I don't know what, they didn't even show you either, so we don't know what that look entails. So that's going to be interesting to see what the hell that is, because it's just been something set up for the past couple episodes, but it won't be till next time when we get the full realization of what that means, what the end result is. Once again, worried about the Frankenstein result of it all, that you're just like, that's probably going to end up being something bad, but we'll have to see. Is it something reversible? Especially after everything Barry went through with the whole Iris situation. I don't know how that's going to play out, especially with this Frost Caitlin thing. I mean, because once again, he's been through the whole, losing Iris thing before. Once again, Caitlin kind of threw that in his face. And when it came to this whole, both the Frost situation and the, Robbie situation. I said Robbie. Ronnie. Yeah, because I was thinking Robbie and Mel. Ronnie. But nevertheless. Then we have our very end stinger, where it is Barry and Iris, him not wanting to let her go. And, it's like, right, I'm your lightning rod, you're mine, and it's that I reignited that spark, that connection between us because of that. But there has to be balance, so the negative Speed Force will choose another avatar at some point in time. But Barry's like, no matter when it is, we will be ready, and we see that it's 17 years from now in 2049, which doesn't mean anything, because it's like, right, Eobard was from the future, and he still ended up being a nuisance to you in the present day. But because when it comes to speedsters, time travel is always an element. So it's like, yeah, there's the negative Speed Force chose someone in 2049. It's like, well, that doesn't mean anything, because time is relative to a speed, kind of relevant and kind of irrelevant to a speedster. So comic book people are probably like, oh my god, I know who the new negative Speed Force most likely chose and what that represents. I don't know if it's going to be like oh my god, so-and-so is going to be the next negative, the next reverse Flash. Maybe it's just going to be a thing of, no, like, I don't know if anyone's ever taken the mantle other than Eobard. So that might be like hinting to some other speedster villain that's born, that's from the comics or something like that. They've run through quite a few of them. I mean, the only one, like, I don't know all of them. The only ones I was aware of have already been done. So, obviously, Reverse Flash, Zoom, which is always interesting because, like, I know Zoom and Reverse Flash are sometimes are the same person. It's Eobard. I don't know if they're always the same person or, are they sometimes a different person like they're in show. Regardless, they did Savitar. They've also done Godspeed. So, what's next? I'm curious, like, would the next season villain be a speedster? Because how many times have they done a non-speedster? I mean, there's technically, what was his name? Alchemy, but he was serving Savitar. So I won't necessarily count that because the main antagonist ended up being Savitar. So Cicada, the Thinker, and Mirror Master are like the main ones. So that's only 3. So every other one has been a speedster. So it makes you wonder, will the next one be a speedster? So The Flash obviously is coming back for Season 9, but the big question is, will this be the final season? A lot of speculation has been, it is. I've seen stuff specifically saying that it might be a truncated season, so I guess meaning like on the shorter end. Because obviously the conversation has been like about like, what will they do if this is the final season? How will the Flash end? Because the Flash ending is pretty much wrapping up the entire Arrowverse, because obviously with Legends cancellation and Batwoman getting canceled, so the Flash is the only like Arrowverse show still standing, because even Superman and Lois is kind of like, as I talked about in the season finale, is kind of pointing out it's on a different Earth. So it and Stargirl are kind of their own thing. So the question is, if this is the end, how should it end? I figure they should. I don't know. They probably will not do a, just because time and money. They will probably not do a major crossover. Crisis is the last major one we got. I mean, Armageddon's probably the closest we'll get. You probably get, if we got anything, it'd be something similar to that. But I don't know. It begs the question, because that's been a conversation. I recently put out my thoughts about it. Like, if they were to end the Flash, I would want them to kind of treat it like they did the final season of Arrow. Someone has suggested basically make it like essentially a Justice League season, because you already have the Justice League. But once again, it's a time and money thing. So I don't see that happening. But you'd hope that would happen, but it probably won't. Kind of just do a lot of closing of a lot of stories in this universe to some extent. Once again, this is all based on if it's the ninth season's the final season. It hasn't been officially said yet, at least publicly, whether CW/the WB's made that decision or not. Other stuff is coming to an end. A lot of stuff obviously got canceled. So the question then becomes, like, it as the potential sort of the last remaining Arrowverse show, the question is, like, are they going to continue it? Because I think, didn't they say, like, Grant Gustin, like, contracted for, like, one more season? Like, he renewed his contract for one more season. So feels like this is kind of the end. And like I said, like, if they struck, because the entirety of the 80% of the final season of Arrow was just build up to Crisis on Infinite Earth. So kind of do something similar to that and just like end off on like a big finale. Not necessarily like a massive crossover, but like I said, just like pop-ins from other people, and then like you can have a just a big Flash ending, you know, maybe something like that. Once again, this is just me throwing it all out there, because we're just in speculative. It's all speculation. Jeez, couldn't get the word out. It's all speculation at this point in time. So you never know, and because I think they're even saying like this season 9 won't even be this year. It'll probably be, well, because this season didn't start until February. Was it January or February? I think it was February when this season started. So the next season probably won't start till, you know, very much the same. So we're not going to get it until like 2023. Between then and now, like, you know, the next couple months, news could end up dropping that this is the final season. Once again, that's speculation on everyone's thoughts and minds, but who knows? I'm interested to see what they do next season. I know Jesse L. Martin isn't going to be a main cast member. He will be like a recurring cast member, so he's kind of probably like going down to like a guest starring role essentially. So what other like casting stuff we're going to get, what other characters, what are some other familiar faces we might see, you know, what villains will we see, because other than season 7 kind of ended pretty much the same way, with the exception of like the Frost stuff. Like, that's the only like conclusive thing. Like the new person chosen avatar, the negative Speed Force, that seems like something super set in the future, that it's like, yeah, they won't deal with that now, but it's set up in this universe to be something that they have to deal with at some point in time. I doubt that's going to be a next season thing. The thought I've constantly had is like, well, you want to make everything come full circle, there's the whole Eddie of it all, but I guess it's like, maybe by ending everything with Thawne, you're kind of closing that door too. But I'm like, once again, it's been all series and they've done nothing fully with the Eddie thing. They brought the actor back just in like smaller like capacities and stuff like this past season. So it's like, I don't know if the opportunities, if he's available, if he's willing to, and if they have the story for it. I think this would be the perfect time to bring back Eddie. It'd be like, kind of, I don't know. Like I said, it feels like everything coming full circle and closing that loop and gap by having that happen. But once again, now that like all of the Thawnes across all of time are gone, then maybe it's not necessary anymore. I don't know. Maybe it's just really is the end on that front. But maybe the 2049 thing has something to do with that. Once again, maybe I don't have the comic book knowledge to really answer that. But either way, I'm very, very interested to see what happens, where season 9 of The Flash, final season or not, whether it ultimately ends up taking us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.